Hello there. I'm Paul Glumaz with Lyndon LaRouche's Political Movement, and today is Tuesday, the 21st of May. And um, if you're watching this, we're coming closer and closer and closer to huge tectonic developments. Um, so tonight, or today, uh, I want to touch on something very profound. And that is, despite all of the problems in the U.S., where everything is going down the tubes, we have a president who can't function because of there is a full-scale assault, a full-scale coup going on. Um, Despite all of that, and the continuing mess in the Middle East, Ukraine, North Korea, despite every effort despite all of the headlines and crazy stuff that's going on that you're getting hit with every day from the media, which is trying to destroy your sense um, of stability, psychological stability. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to destroy your sense of psychological stability with respect to the world, so you withdraw into yourself. Despite all of that, there is steady progress every day towards an entirely new paradigm that will, in due course, be running the world. And that new paradigm is being organized, and the economic component of that paradigm, as we have gone through before, is the Belt and Road Initiative, which is Lyndon LaRouche's and Helga Zipp-LaRouche's earlier New Silk Road, the World Land Bridge. Now, this process of the Belt and Road, which is a manifestation of the new paradigm, is not only gaining ground, but the two key organizers right now for both the political, the international relations, the diplomatic, and the economic um, aspects of this are the president of China, Xi Jinping, and the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. And they're demonstrating that no matter how crazy things get, no matter how much the British try to throw the United States into a confrontation with Russia, no matter how many false flags, like the Skripal business or the Syrian chemical situation, occur, or this Israeli business, trying to blow everything up, these guys don't miss a beat. They are every day building, discussing with other world leaders, sending their people out to organize for a new economic, cultural, and political paradigm. They're even trying to organize Israel. They're trying to organize the United States. They're trying to organize India. And they're doing this with the sense that you either crush this British Empire and take its components and reorganize them into a viable system of sovereign nations, where nations are respected and the nations are governed by the general welfare principle in their conduct with their people and with other nations. That is what's going on. This is amazing. This is incredible that this is happening. And it's while it's not being presented in the media, it is having profound effect on the world, and it's growing. And at the core of this new paradigm conception is that human beings are not animals. That human beings have a quality in them of a divine creative power. And in the Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, this is referred to as humanity, or man and woman in the image of the Creator. And what do they mean by that? What do they mean by that? Do they mean, you know, there is a similar view in Chinese philosophy and Confucian philosophy, and also to some degree, I believe in some of the Hindu issues, some of the Hindu stuff. But this idea of human beings not being animals, being something that is can change the world, can change the universe, can change the way things are. This quality of potential for change, this creativity, is now at the center of the policy that's emerging in China and in Russia. Russia's had a rough time after the collapse of the communism. They were looted to the bone. They still haven't come back from that, but they're making progress. And China went through the most horrible period of the Cultural Revolution, where the worst elements of Chinese culture and the worst elements of Western culture combined to create holy hell for a billion people or half a billion people. They've come out of that. And what's emerged is a conception of a future that is centered on this creative potentiality, which is the driver for scientific and technological progress. This is the core conception that the LaRouche movement is presenting in its new updated pamphlet on the 4 laws. But this conception appears absolutely to be at the core of the policy that is emerging out of China and Russia. Scientific breakthroughs, scientific technological progress, and a revival of a culture, of a human culture, of a classical culture, wherein those precious qualities of humanity that are necessary for scientific and technological progress are nurtured in the human being. This is starting to happen in China and Russia. It has not yet spread to the rest of the world. But this is not geopolitics. This is not, okay, now it's China's turn to be the world's hegemon. No. With Russia in tandem, and replace the American century with the Eurasian century, China-centric Eurasian century. No, this is not what this is. This is not politics. This is not geopolitics. This is not blocks of nations confronting other blocks of nations, and therein you get a balance of power, as Henry Kissinger, played the Cold War period. This is not conflict of civilizations. This is an entirely different orientation. You're organizing the relationships among nations from the standpoint of promoting the scientific, creative powers in the society. Okay. One of the most previously backward nations, Bolivia, has embraced this. They're determined to develop nuclear power. Bolivia. And they have a nuclear energy organization now promoting to develop experimental reactors. And they're saying, we have a right to science. We have a right to the benefits of science. You know. And this has really flipped out the liberals because the president of Bolivia is an indigenous person. Okay. He is, he's not a European. He's not a Spanish. He is indigenous. And even his government is saying, we want a space program. We want to be part of a space program. We want to be part of the development of nuclear power. We understand that the future of our people and the future of our youth depend on them becoming excited about scientific breakthroughs and scientific discoveries. This is what is happening. This is the new paradigm, and its expression in terms of the spread of the new paradigm is located in the Belt and Road. It's not just about building rail lines, to connect all these places, but when you do that, you also bring in the ideas. Okay, you also bring in the concepts. And you have people who for millennia have been cut off from modern civilization, except for the cell phone or the rock music or whatever. But these people now have access, are going to start having access to not only economic development, but with that a way of thinking that transcends tribal and ethnic and religious identities to a higher identity. Doesn't mean they give up their tribal identity or their religious identity or their ethnic identity, but it means that they develop a higher identity in the very concept of what a human being is, and the very concept of the future of mankind, the eradication of poverty. Why is eradicating poverty so important? And all this stuff, all these people that talk about eliminating poverty, they're not serious about eliminating poverty. They don't even understand how you eliminate poverty. You have to completely transform an economy. You have to train, and you have to elevate people through education. You have to, poor people, extremely poor people, are not productive. Maybe in a sweatshop or a slave labor system, they may produce to some degree, but that's not being productive. That's not expanding the real economy. So poverty, backbreaking poverty, and is the source of criminality. It's the source of terrorism. It's what's exploited. It's why the empire prefers to have the population backward and poor, because they can recruit mercenary armies to run warlords and drug lords and religious warfare and all of that, because they can recruit from that. This was the Middle Ages. This is how they ran things in the Middle Ages. This is what the mercenaries were in the Middle Ages. They were called knights. They weren't very nice, by the way. And this is the world they want to live in, of chaos, where people are flooding into areas and willing to do anything to survive. Human trafficking, prostitution, drug usage. This is the world that John Brennan wants. This is the world that Obama represented. This is the world that that is the British Empire. And there is something new coming in. And that something new is growing every day. And Japan is now collaborating with China. For decades, the Japanese have wanted to develop third world countries, but they were blocked by the U.S. They were blocked by the fact that they were under occupation since World War II and since the Korean War. And every time the Japanese decided to massively expand their economy to develop third world countries like Mexico, they were going to develop the industrial transformation of Mexico in the 70s, and they were stopped by the U.S. You know, Zbigniew Brzezinski said, "We're not going to have any Japan south of the border." So they had to accommodate and accommodate this international financial system. They had to accommodate the British system. And it was the intention of the Obama administration around the Asia pivot to recruit Japan into a military, aggressive active military partner with the U.S. in enforcing discipline on the Asian nations. This is called the China pivot. And in 2016, Abe was told by Putin not to go meet with Putin. Abe was told by Obama not to go meet with Putin in Sochi, and he went. And from then on, Japan has been moving in a more independent direction, and now they see the opportunity of fulfilling what they had originally wanted to do back in the 70s by partnering with China in development all over the world. And this is what is starting to happen. So you have Japan and China working together. China might come in and build the rail infrastructure, and Japan might come in and build something else. But this is the new model for global development. Partnering with China in the Belt and Road. The Spanish foreign minister says that's the model we want to follow, the one that is now emerging between Japan and China. Last year, India and China were about to have a border war. Last month, Modi and Xi met for 24 hours in a 2-day period. Now India is partnering with China in building a Belt and Road corridor that goes through Afghanistan into Iran, into Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, into Iran. This is the model. And Li Keqiang, the Prime Minister of China, is saying to the U.S., you have to expand your manufacturing facilities. Okay. But you can't compete. But if you compete with us over a fixed market, then we're going to get hurt if you do well. And if we do well and you don't do well, you're going to get hurt. What we need to do is expand the market. Therefore, we want to help you build your plant and equipment and your infrastructure and your manufacturing facilities so you can become part of this partnering process. To partner with Japan, to partner with China. And right in 2 days, there will be a once again yearly St. Petersburg Economic Forum presided over by Putin, and the guest of honor is Shinzo Abe, and Shinzo Abe is going to be at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and so will Macron, and so will Christine Lagarde of the IMF. And what Macron and Russia are talking about is to partner together, France and Russia, in nuclear power plant construction in other countries, exporting nuclear power plant construction. This is the new paradigm. Though France is double dealing and backstabbing every which way, Macron is not happy with the, you know, with the new paradigm. Nonetheless, France wants to survive. They have to accommodate this. So now, if Japan, an occupied country since World War II, is making this break, and by the way, this Korean development could also accelerate that process, because if this Korean development is resolved, why do you need U.S. troops in Japan and South Korea? So this whole thing is accelerating. So Modi met with Putin a few days ago. Okay? Modi discussed with Russia, India joining the Eurasian Economic Union, which Iran is joining this year. The Eurasian Economic Union is a customs is where you have the free flow of goods, you know, between nations. So you're able to integrate these nations. So this is what Ukraine wanted to do before they had the coup. They figured out the Eurasian Economic Union was a better deal for Ukraine than the European Union, because the Eurasian Economic Union afforded Ukraine's industry vast potential for exports, since Ukraine had the best, had the most advanced industrial base left over from the Soviet Union, but it was not integratable into the European industrial structure. It was still, but it was integratable east, and all of that was overthrown by the coup, the Mauldin coup, run by the U.S., run by NATO, and Ukraine is a mess. So there is now a realization, and the question is, where is Germany? Merkel met with Putin twice this month so far, and she will next week be meeting with Xi in China. What is that going to be about? Is Germany starting to think that maybe her future is in the Belt and Road? Maybe her future is in a new paradigm. And then you had our friends in Italy, from the Lega Nord, and some of our other friends in the MS Movimiento 5-Star Movement, who are forming a government. And this has completely freaked out the global financial crowd, because in their original document, which they backed off from a little bit, they were talking about setting up a Hamiltonian national bank in Italy. And they were talking about not counting the money that is spent or created for infrastructure as part of the debt, but separating the capital debt from the budget, which then frees them from the restriction on development that's imposed by the European Union Maastricht Treaty Agreement, which means you can only spend a deficit. You can only have a deficit of 3% or so of your budget. So you can actually create debt and escape the Maastricht criteria, or the criteria that establishes a straitjacket on the country, and start building. This has completely freaked out the City of London. The City of London one of the City of London mouthpieces, the London Times, says the barbarians are in Rome now, and the Lega Nord president said, "Better a barbarian than a slave." So this is going on. This is a motion. This is huge motion, and then you have the situation between China and the United States. We're about to have a trade war with China, and now they backed off a little bit. The U.S. is going to get a $50 billion more trade with China in the food area and the automobile area, but that doesn't resolve the situation. Liu He, the Chinese economist, who is the leading Chinese economist in China, has spent a lot of time here, and he is saying to the U.S. To Trump's team, he's saying to them, look, the problem is your structural problem. You have a structural problem. You're going to have to reorganize your banking system. And two, you're not going to, you're not going to resolve this problem through a trade war. You're going to resolve this problem within the context of an expanding world economy. So this is the process that is going on. And these people around Trump don't quite get that. They're from a different tradition. And the people, but nonetheless, this is the organizing process that's going on. The organizing for a new paradigm. And this is what we're going to what we're now taking into the U.S. streets and into the congressional races. Is we're taking these ideas, and we have three pledges. One, that you have to do everything possible to stop the coup against the president. Two, you have to bring the United States into the Belt and Road. And three, you have to reorganize the U.S. based on LaRouche's 4 laws. This is what our campaign is. And I neglected to mention the whole business that's going on, the huge breaking developments around the FBI and Mueller and this and that and all of that, and Brennan and all that. I'll save that for some other time.